It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the Coach Perry, and Pat, the Shot Caller Flaherty. Here we go.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports. Once again, we're talking about 10 topics in sports across the nation, across the globe. Once again, my name is Pat Flaherty, the shot caller, and I am, as always, joined by my partner in crime, Brandon, the Coach Perry. Brandon, what's happening this week, my friend?
What's up, Pat? It's a cold February. We're here talking about sports. I mean, what's better to do when it's this cold out?
Oh, I know. And the rest of the country is feeling what we feel all the time here in New England. Texas is getting slammed with snow and freezing cold temperatures down there. So we feel for those folks. They don't know how to deal with it like we do up here. This is an every week occurrence for us in February up here in New England. Yeah, exactly, buddy. But despite it being, sort of the week after the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl's kind of definitely in the rearview mirror now. There's still a lot going on in sports, which is awesome. And the first thing that we're going to talk about here is something that New Englanders certainly have a lot of interest in. And before we get going, folks, obviously you're watching us on YouTube right now. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to the Comeback Sports channel. A lot of good stuff up on our Comeback Sports YouTube channel. You can watch previous videos that we've done. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of the screen, so make sure you check those out right there. And you'll see a lot of links that we post as well, along with following us on YouTube. But our first sports topic of the night, of course, is Dustin Pedroia. He just officially retired from the Boston Red Sox. Pedroia, what can you say? He's been a championship player since the day he stepped on the field. He won Rookie of the Year 2007, won MVP in 2008, a couple World Series with the Red Sox. So certainly, had a great career, but sort of a sad way to end his career with the Red Sox, Brandon.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely a sad way to end his career, but I think he's up there, honestly, with one of the Red Sox greats. And I'll even say that of all time. I mean, because of what he's been to the organization and how he's played. And he was such an underdog his whole career and really just showed up in big moments. And I know I want to put him in the same breath as Tom Brady, not with all the wins and all the greatness, but in the same breath as like being an underdog and coming out of nowhere and turning into such a special player that everybody in New England pretty much fell in love with him. I know he was one of my favorite players during the streak that he was on the team, and obviously some injuries caught up to him late in his career, so we didn't get to see him on the diamond as much. But yeah, I mean, what a great player, and like I said, he's a king for the little guys, and for little guys like me, I mean, one of those short guys that people are telling you, hey, you're not going to be able to do it, you're not going to make it to pro sports, and this guy did it, and he played at a high level, he played for a long time. So I'm hoping that the Red Sox will really have something special to send him off.
Yeah, I think they will. The Red Sox like celebrating, when the truck leaves for spring training. So I think they'll definitely have something for Dustin Pedroia. A phenomenal, one of the best Red Sox of all time. He's kind of the epitome of. They used to call him dirt dogs with the Red Sox, the Trot Nixons, guys like that. And Pedroia was definitely one of those guys. As I mentioned before, Rookie of the Year in 2007, MVP in 2008, won a World Series in 2007 and 2013, and then he was technically on the team in 2018 when they won another one, but I think that's probably not the saddest or most disappointing part of his career, but you kind of wish he was a major part of that 2018 team, because if he was, he would have had, he would have been a major contributor on 3 World Series winning teams. And then that really, I think, would have solidified his career and maybe even put him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's going to make it right now with his career numbers and everything like that. He's certainly a great player, Gold Glove, one of the best fielding second basemen of all time. But I don't know if he'll get into the Hall of Fame because he wasn't on that final, 2018 World Series team. And because, the last couple of years of his career, he hasn't been able to stay on the diamond.
Yeah, I don't think he has Hall of Fame numbers for the actual League Hall of Fame, but I think he deserves to be in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. Right. And so I'm really hoping that the Red Sox will do that and go ahead and put him in their Hall of Fame, because he definitely deserves that. I know he was the captain of the team many years too. So, I mean, just that leadership is huge. And I know that leadership on that World Series team, you can't really account for how much that means to a team in team sports. So I really think that Dustin Pedroia was just a huge part of this Red Sox organization, and he's going to be greatly missed. And definitely a fan favorite, which I think that's huge. So I think the fans, especially here in New England, are really going to miss him and miss seeing him play for the Red Sox. And kind of like this next guy, and topic number 2, Andrew Benintendi really seemed like a fan favorite as well. I guess people were saying that he didn't really deliver as much as people expected him to. But I know, like I said, fan favorite, and I think some people are a little upset to see him go, but it could have been time.
I think Benintendi had a real nice year in 2018. It was really his second full year in the major leagues. When the Red Sox won the World Series, his OPS was 830, 290 at the plate, 21 steals. He had 16 homers, 87 RBI. So really a nice 2018 campaign. And then 2019 struggled. His numbers dipped across the board at the plate and also stealing bases. And then last year, he only played 14 games in an already shortened season. I don't mind that the Red Sox just traded Andrew Benintendi. I don't think he's an all-star caliber player. Certainly good player, makes plays at great times. He made that great catch in the ALCS against the Astros back in 2018. He's made some great catches in the outfield. He's fast, can hit a little bit for power. I didn't love the way he ran the bases. I thought he could have used a little bit more seasoning in the minor leagues before he came up in 2017. But again, I don't mind that they traded him. It's just that, you wonder, he didn't have a great 2019, barely played in 2020, and now you're trading him. So his value is probably at the lowest it's ever been in his Red Sox career. So now you're trading him for prospects, which I'm okay with. The prospect Winkowski from the Mets, it looks like he's the one that the Red Sox really wanted. Franchy Cordero, the guy that they got from Kansas City, I've been talking with friends and family who love the Red Sox. He seems like another version of William Opeña. I just don't see it. He's 27. He's not a great hitter. I know he's got a lot of power, but if you're striking out, 200 times a year, what does it matter? And they have 3 players to be named later that are coming over the Red Sox. And then the best player and the best prospect in the deal, actually, Khalil Lee, went to the 3rd team in the deal, the Mets. So, I don't mind that they traded him. I just think they could have done it mid-season, let him build his value back up, and then maybe get more in the deal than what they got.
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point of value, and they probably didn't get the best value in this situation for a good player that is probably going to rebound and have some great years out in Kansas City. I know he said that he's really looking forward to getting out there and getting started, and it's a lot closer to being home. He said he's a Midwest guy, so he's really looking forward to getting back out there in the Midwest. But I know, the Boston fans, I think some are going to miss him because he was a fan favorite. I really don't mind with him moving on, though. I'm going to trust the Red Sox scouts here and trust the Red Sox personnel, but I really hope that obviously the Red Sox will have a bounce back year and have a good year because, we're up there, definitely top 10, definitely probably top 5 in payrolls every season. So I just like to see them getting more for their money, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, I think this is going to take some time. I think the Red Sox are going to struggle a little bit this year as well, just because they're sort of selling guys off. They're really trying to rebuild the farm system. Their approach has been, when they had Dave Dabrowski as the GM or president of baseball operations, whatever you want to call him, he was go for it all, go for broke, make a bunch of deals to get big players in Boston, and then they ended up winning the World Series in 2018 because of it. Now with Chaim Bloom, who comes from the Tampa Bay Rays system, from their front office, he seems to be bringing that Tampa Bay mentality, sell some players off that you don't want to pay long term, build up the farm system, and then with the Red Sox, pockets, they can actually go out and acquire some players maybe next year because they're not doing a lot in free agency right now. And I don't expect them to do a lot, going forward into the season because spring training is just starting now. And then kind of see where you're at. And I think that's what their approach is going to be. So we'll see how some of these young guys, if some of these young guys come up, or some of the players that they acquired help them this year to kind of hold, sort of a bridge year that they've talked about in the past. And then we'll see where they go from there. Switching gears now to the NBA, and one of the things that came up, later last week, and this has certainly been a topic over the last 4 years, really, and maybe 5 years in professional sports, is the national anthem. Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks came out and said that he did not want the Mavs playing the national anthem over the last couple of games because he felt like the national anthem didn't stand for what his players and what his team stood for or stands for right now. He then later cleared up the comments and said that he just wanted to do that for a brief period to kind of prove a point. We'll see how the Mavs, handle the national anthem from here on out. What's your take on this, Brandon?
Well, I've got a couple of ideas about this, and because it's Mark Cuban and he likes attention, to be honest, so he's always looking to pretty much do something, whether it's good or bad, to get the attention on him and his organization. He is one of my favorite owners, though, in the NBA. I will say that he's done a lot for the game and for the NBA. I love seeing him come into the NBA many years ago now at this point. But I hope it's just not a publicity stunt. But I'm gonna go ahead and back him up and say that it's not, because most recently he's also helped out Delonte West, and that was huge. Getting Delonte West, into a rehab and getting his life back in order was, I think, a great step from Mark Cuban. And I think he's bringing up what I think a lot of people have brought up, and even going back to Colin Kaepernick about the social justices in the two Americas that we live in right now. So I don't mind him bringing up the message. I just also think that there's many other ways that Mark Cuban, one of the richest owners in the NBA, could go about getting after it, besides just not playing the national anthem. I know the NBA came out and they said that all teams will be playing the national anthem going forward. And then that's when Cuban came out saying that, they were only going to do it for a short time and they would get back to playing it. So he's going to have to come up with other ways to basically push this social justice agenda and to help out.
Yeah, I have never been a fan of not having the national anthem at all. I just think that's, some folks have come on social media and said, if you go to sports in other countries, they don't have their own anthem playing. Why does America have to do that? Why does American professional sports have to do the same thing as everybody else? Why can't they have the national anthem? I think the national anthem is great. I love when I'm at a Red Sox game. I always stand up. I always take my hat off. I don't like when guys in the stands don't at least stand up and they're talking and yelling stupid things during the national anthem. And also, I'm certainly okay with players expressing any dissatisfaction they have with our country during the national anthem. If they're kneeling, that's a sign of respect. Like, kneeling is okay. Like, why do we have to, it seems like everybody either wants to have everybody standing with their hand on their heart for the national anthem or not having it at all. Why can't we let people, kneel or stand or lock arms or, hold up their foot, do whatever you want, as long as it's somewhat respectful and, we play the national anthem, we all do it together. I don't see a problem with it. Why do we have to? I think not having it, is something where you're kind of just like taking the issue and it becomes, you're making your point about two different Americas and what the flag stands for and what the national anthem stands for. But then once you stop doing the anthem altogether, after a couple of games, it just goes away. Whereas if you continue to do the national anthem, you can continue to express, how you feel about this country and keep talking about it. If you want to keep the conversation active, keep doing the national anthem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's something that they should definitely still be playing it. And I think, he's obviously got himself in that situation where they are going to be playing it. And he's saying that he did it just to bring up the conversation. Right. So if that's true and we're now having the conversation and we're extending it, then that's a good thing. But I do think it should be played. And I 100% agree with you that, players taking a stand per se against social injustices or taking a knee or raising a fist, whatever they want to do, I'm completely with that. And I agree because I do want to have the conversation continue. But as far as the anthem goes, I still think it should be played. I come from a military family, so I agree with you. I do get mad when people are doing disrespectful signs during the anthem. I don't think kneeling is one of them, so don't quote me on that if anybody tries to, because I do, like you said, I think that's very respectful. I think that's a good way of still supporting the social injustices and that cause, but also, still being respectful of the anthem and what it stands for, and all the people that have, given their lives for this country. I think that is one of the biggest things, and I know a lot of people bring that up. So, I think it's a big topic. Hopefully we'll still be talking about it going forward. And like I said, I'm hoping that Mark Cuban will continue to do things, especially, like I said, because he is one of the richest owners in the NBA, if not one of the richest men in America. So hopefully he'll still continue to be able to push the social injustice agenda forward in some other way as well. But moving on to topic number 4, and that's the Anthony Davis injury. I know it was kind of scary the other night. There was rumors and people were talking about an Achilles injury, and that's when I was like, oh my goodness, like that could be huge. Obviously a big drop for the Lakers, but just a big loss for Anthony Davis himself if he had to suffer that. Luckily, it turned out to not be an Achilles, and so they're saying, I believe, a high ankle sprain at the moment. But he's still gonna be sidelined for a few weeks.
Right. So I think the worry was that he ruptured his Achilles, which he got an MRI I think 2 nights ago. That's not what happened. I think he's got a calf strain, and he's also, his right Achilles has some kind of tendonitis, something about the Achilles that's related to tendonitis. I don't know all the terminology, but I think he's gonna. What I've seen, Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN tweeted, I think, a couple days ago that he's not coming back before the league schedule resumes after the All-Star break. That's March 10th, so he's gonna miss at least 10 to 11 games. So if I'm the Lakers, you just won a title. You're in good position in the West. You're probably not going to get to first place with the way the Jazz are going. You don't really need to. This isn't the year where you really got to worry about home court advantage with the amount of fans that are let in the arena. So let Anthony Davis rest. If he's ready to go on March 10th, you play him. Right now, rest him. There's no reason to rush him back. I think the biggest question you now have is, does this put so much on LeBron James, who's now 36 years old, same age as me, which is crazy, and you, and is he now, he's considered old in the NBA. Is it a lot more wear and tear on LeBron now that Anthony Davis is going to be out for a few more weeks?
Well, first off, I'm 37.
You old man. I'll be there in a couple of weeks, buddy.
But yeah, no, I agree. It puts a little bit more pressure on LeBron James, but I think he's going to be fine, to be honest. I mean, he's one of those players, kind of like a Ronaldo, that's just been getting better with age. And I think this is going to be one of those moments where LeBron likes to take it on himself, to be honest, and because people are going to question, can he do it? And so I think he's going to show up. He's going to show up big. I don't know. Did you see him pull up from the logo the other night and airball it?
Yeah, that wasn't pretty. That wasn't pretty.
But I mean, that was
looking back for anybody on that one. But
that was a funny moment. But obviously, I don't think he's going to be pulling up from the logo too much like Steph and Dame Lillard. But if he gets back to his normal game of running the court, rebounding, and distributing, I think you're going to see a lot more of why this guy has been named the MVP of the league multiple times. And honestly, over the last few seasons, I don't know why he hasn't been named the league MVP more times, because to be honest, I think the year that Giannis won it, I would disagree. I think that LeBron James was the MVP that year. I would say that LeBron James was the MVP of the league pretty much almost every year that we've had recently, except for the year, I believe it was 2 years ago, when James Harden went off in Houston and really carried the Rockets. I did believe that James Harden deserved that one, and he was the MVP of the league that year. But other than that, it's been LeBron James, and the guy should have more of those trophies in his cabinet. So I think this is going to be one of those moments where he's going to get a chance to carry the Lakers. I think, like you said, they kind of just have to, don't panic, put it in cruise control a little bit. You are going to lose some games. It's more of a long haul at this point. Let's rest our star. When we're talking about tendonitis, that's an overuse injury. So, these guys are getting a lot of miles coming from playing youth basketball, to high school, to college, to now the NBA. So you really got to rest your stars at some point. So it's good for load management at this point. And, and I guess that even speaks more to LeBron James with how many miles this guy's put in, and he's still out there just like, a good old American GMC truck just tearing it up.
Yeah, LeBron is a cyborg, so I think he'll be all right, man. I don't think he's going to be sitting out too many games. They might rest him here and there, but I think you're right about the MVP thing. One of the reasons why LeBron hasn't won the MVP, I think, is a couple of things. One, there have been some years, he's actually sat out 15 to 20 games. That was with the Cavs. And then he really sat out his first year with the Lakers. I think he played 35, maybe even more than that, but he didn't play a full season. So I think a lot of, voters said, well, you're not going to win the MVP if you don't play that many games. You don't have to play 82, but if you're only playing 62, then I think there is a difference there. This year, even though he's still the best player in the league, this year, he just seems to be a man on a mission. And now that Anthony Davis is out, LeBron, like you mentioned, is just going to be more hyper-focused. I think he's going to try to get another MVP. He's now thinking about his legacy. He's got, 4 titles. So he's still chasing Jordan for 2 more. But the MVPs is part of that too. Like when you're talking about the greatest player of all time, it's going to be him and Jordan once LeBron hangs it up. And MVPs are part of that discussion. I think he's going to be chasing after at least 1 more this year with the Lakers. Just the toughest part about it is the schedule. We've talked about it, throughout our life of this show, is how condensed the NBA schedule is. You got back-to-backs, you got games every other night, basically. So that's going to be the toughest part going forward, I think, for LeBron. But I think he's definitely going to be trying for that next MVP this year in 2021. I'm going to switch to the ice now. Is the Boston Bruins are hot right now. They they lost their most recent game to the Islanders, but or a couple nights ago to the Islanders. But they've been pretty great to start the season. A little inconsistent as far as playing 3 periods of hockey. They've had a few games where they wait till the 3rd period to score 4 straight, and then they win in overtime. Or they've had a few instances like that where they've won late because they've kind of slept through the first couple of periods of each game. But 22 points, that leads their division. They're second in the league altogether behind Toronto. So they've had a great start to the season. They've won 9 out of the last 11 and 5 out of the last 6. So they've been hot lately. And, it's the same guys, it seems like, Brandon, leading this team.
Yeah, it's good to see. I'm glad that they're getting hot. And I think they needed a little bit of time to kind of gather and compose themselves, especially after losing Chara, to be honest. He was the captain of the team. He organized a lot of the play from the back there. So as the defenseman, the lead defenseman. So I think that, they're really starting to come together as a team with him gone now. And it's good to see them getting on that hot streak. And like you said, 9 of 11, that is on a hot streak right now. I think they've done a good job. I think they've been having really high quality practices. And that's really what the coaching staff's been talking about, how high quality of the practices they've been putting in. Really intense practice sessions. And then they've also tried a few different line combinations, and I know that has definitely helped out over this stretch. And there's most recently, I believe they moved David Krejci to the first line, and he talked about how he was loving it playing in that first line and having a chance to be able to distribute the puck a little bit more. He's got 10 assists on the season right now, and hopefully he's going to stack up a couple more now that he's on the first line. But I think between their high quality and intense practices, they've just really been able to gel together as a team. And then you've got your, like you said, your typical stars putting in 5-star games at this point, and it's really starting to come together for the Bruins, and I'm excited for what this team's going to do going forward.
Yeah, you look at them statistically, and now that Pasta's back, I think he has 5 goals in 7 games or something like that, he's obviously their top, shooter on the team. But, Marchand and Bergeron up there in assists along with Krejci, and Charlie McAvoy's got 10 assists. So you're starting to see the younger defensemen develop. I mean, McAvoy's been in the spotlight since he came up to Boston after, being drafted out of Boston University. And I think he's starting to finally be that guy. We saw it a little bit. He actually played pretty well next to Chara his rookie season. And then there were times, I think last year especially, where you kind of just didn't see that elite defensive minded defenseman for the Bruins and Charlie McAvoy, I think you're seeing it now. Along with his offensive game, I think you're seeing a full game from Charlie McAvoy. One player that has sort of struggled at the beginning of the season that I think the Bruins are going to need throughout the year when we're talking about depth and guys that they're going to need later on in the season, especially if they get an injury. A guy like Charlie Coyle has struggled so far. He's only got 4 points in 14 games to start the season, so he hasn't totally been where he was last year. He also had a nice postseason last year as well for the Bruins. So we'll see if they can get him going, because even though Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak, Krejci, McAvoy, they're all playing well, they're all distributing the puck well, they're all scoring, you can't rely on them every single game. You need some guys from the third line, even maybe the fourth line once in a while, to step up. So we'll see if Charlie Coyle and some of the other guys can step up as well.
Yeah, I think they're all playing really at a high level right now, and hopefully they can continue it on down the line. And I think it's really a fast-paced play that they're playing right now, and they're also playing very physical. And I think obviously in the National Hockey League, once you combine those two, you really start to play at a high level with owning the ice space, and then obviously we're just really playing at a fast pace where the other team can't keep up, and you're looking to put it in the back of the net. So hopefully they'll continue on this hot streak right now. And like I said, I'm looking forward to what they're going to be doing going forward. But moving forward to topic number 6 tonight, the fan-controlled football league. I mean, I didn't get to watch any of the games. I saw some of the highlights, to be honest. But it's kind of an exciting thing. I was just looking at it before the show. There's some exciting owners. You've got Richard Sherman as one of the owners of the team. I believe he's the owner of the Glacier Boys. And then you've got Ronnie 2K, who's kind of out there. If people know about Ronnie 2K, he's one of the owners. I believe there was another owner that was another athlete. So you have some high-profile people attached to the league. And I think obviously the most high-profile person they have attached to the league is playing in it. And that's, Johnny Manziel. And then you had Marshawn Lynch on the commentary this weekend too, which was hilarious.
Yeah, anytime Marshawn Lynch is over the airwaves, it's an interesting listen. Lynch is actually, I believe, one of the owners of one of the teams as well, along with Mike Tyson. So Marshawn Lynch and Mike Tyson own one of the teams. I also think Austin Eckler has some ownership stake in one of the teams as well. I'm guessing the team is in California. I have no idea. I got to look that up. But, why not try this? The XFL came back. I think it was last year, right, when the XFL started to have a season, and it actually went pretty well, and then the pandemic started. I remember going into a brewery to hang out, and I saw football on the screen in February when we could actually go inside places and hang out, and the XFL was on, and it was cool. It was just I watched for a little bit. I wasn't, totally invested in the game, but why not? Why not have another football league that people can just check out? You don't have to be as popular as the NFL because you're not going to be. So, try something different. There's no college football on. There's no NFL football on. But it's that time in between the Super Bowl and the NFL draft. People just want to see a little bit of football. I think this could work. Right now, it's only 4 teams, I believe. They're going to have 6 weeks, 4 regular season games, a playoff round, and then a championship round. So all 4 teams make the playoffs. So I think that, the 4 weeks of the season is kind of, you don't know how good they're going to get in 4 weeks. And is that, do those 4 games matter if everybody makes the playoffs anyways? That's probably for the next season when they really have to think about it. But why not try this? And like you said, Johnny Manziel's playing. I never liked the guy, but he is exciting if he's playing on the football field. So you might be able to get some other guys. I just saw that Tim Tebow actually just retired from playing baseball in the Mets organization. He was down in one of the minor league affiliates for the Mets. Maybe he wants to come back and play football. Get him in that league. Start getting guys that at least can bring some popularity and some eyeballs to the league, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, I think this proves how football is now America's pastime, and it's really football is king now, especially when, multiple organizations are trying to fill the void of the NFL to be able to eat up that money and the love of football and the love of the game itself. So as a coach and as a player myself, I love seeing it. And like you said, the XFL was making strong strides when they were coming back. And I think the pandemic obviously halted that, but they have plans to come back, and we'll definitely talk about that going forward on the show. But I think this is a great idea. Why not try it? Why not try to fill the void? You're bringing in some high-profile names. Johnny Manziel actually did play pretty good. He had kind of a highlight run. It's Arena League football, so you only have the 50-yard field. So you're going to have some highlights. You're going to have some hits. I think that's what people love about football. You're going to have some fast play. Marshawn Lynch was quoted as saying that he'd have 200 yards every game if he had to play on a 50-yard field, which I believe it because he'd just be running through everybody every time. But I think, like I said, maybe I'll watch some of the games next week. I think they've got to gain a little bit more steam and gain a few more players, like you said, a few more notoriety players like a Manziel to kind of gain more viewership going forward. But the reason Johnny Manziel said that he likes it is because you can kind of just show up and play. You don't have to practice. There's no big commitment to it. Some of the fans actually even get to call in plays, I believe through surveys or through like some sort of fan-controlled, obviously, part of the league where they get to call in plays. So maybe I'll try giving a play to Manziel over the weekend here and see what happens. But yeah, why not try to fill the void? Make some money off of the little bit of void, like I said, that's missing from NFL football. But I think it is going to be tough sledding, and I think the XFL is in prime position to be able to fill that void more than fan-controlled football. But we'll see what they can do going forward.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me, if the XFL comes back, with investors and more support than they had before. You might see a merging of these two leagues because the XFL is a little bit more established. They have more coaches, more players. You might see some of the fan interaction with the teams that you get from this fan league and combine that with the XFL. If they can kind of share ideas, they might, create a league that's very different than the NFL, and then you might get something really great on your hands. One thing that they did do for this league also, the commissioner of the league is a former player, Ray Austin, who played in the NFL for, I believe, the Bears and one other team. And then he played in the XFL. So he's seen the best league, the best football league on the planet, and he's also seen the XFL, which was exciting, but, you saw it kind of collapse towards the end before it came back right before the pandemic. So he's kind of seen all aspects of football leagues here in America. So I think it's interesting that they picked a player like that to be the commissioner of the league. It's pretty sort of fascinating. I think that's a good move. But going to the NFL, on our next topic is, as Patriots fans, we're still trying to figure out who the next quarterback is going to be if it's not Cam Newton. And one of the players that's been rumored that the Patriots have some interest in that they would have to trade for is Marcus Mariota, the current backup quarterback for the Raiders. We obviously saw him just a couple years ago with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill came in for him midway through the 2019 season, and Tannehill just kind of went off. And Mariota hadn't started for Tennessee the rest of the season. Came in once, I believe, for Derek Carr this past year, played pretty well. Mariota certainly got talent. What do you think is Mariota for a fit for the Patriots?
Well, there's two questions to this Mariota question in itself, and that is the player and the contract. So the player himself is definitely worth it. I think especially with a team that needs a quarterback right now, this is a guy that has a lot of starts in the NFL. He started over multiple seasons. He's had a couple of pretty good seasons. Obviously, he tailed off a little bit there at the end of his time in Tennessee, but I still think he's a serviceable quarterback. He's still fairly young. And saying that, having been in the NFL for multiple years and having all that experience and still being fairly young, I believe he's only 28. So he's still got plenty of time. He's still got plenty of tread on the tires. So the player himself, I think, is yes. That's a yes. And we're talking about a former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at the University of Oregon. This guy can really play if you put him in the right system. I think, obviously, he's gotten to play the best position in the NFL over the last year or two, and that's backup quarterback because you get to do nothing and get paid a ton of money. But, I mean, I think he's one of those guys that is probably looking for a chance to become a starter again. This would be his chance to come in and become a starter. I wouldn't actually mind trying him out at least for 1 year again. And so that brings me to the second part. Like I said, the contract. And here's the thing. I don't think his contract is worth it because it's so incentive-laden right now. And I think that's why you're seeing the Las Vegas Raiders trying to shop him so much, because here's the thing. If he gets on the field more than 60%, he's going to get a huge bonus. So obviously as a starter, you're going to be on the field more than 60%. So right now his cap hit is just $10 million as he is right now. However, if he comes in and plays over 60% of the snaps and even leads you into a playoffs, the cap hit can be worth $22 million or $25 million, I believe. So that's a huge cap hit. And so I think they said $22 million if he wins the Super Bowl. So, okay, if he wins the Super Bowl for the Patriots, I'll take that. $22 million cap hit for a Super Bowl is worth it. However, they said if we have a similar season like we just seen with Cam Newton, the cap hit would still be about $19 million. And I don't think at that point he would be worth it. So it's one of those things, I think, would he be willing to restructure his contract to come to a place like New England, to be able to start again and to maybe be able to, get his career going again? And we've seen quarterbacks restructure their contracts. Obviously, Tom Brady restructured his contract multiple times here in New England. Drew Brees just restructured his contract. It happened. So it's not unheard of. Is that something that Marcus Mariota would be willing to do to become a starter again? So those are my two questions. The player, yes. The contract, no, not in its current state.
Yeah, it's a very good point about the incentives. I actually didn't even look at that part when we were getting ready for the show. I did see that, his base salary is $10.725 million, so which is not that much for a starting quarterback until you talk about those incentives, like you mentioned. The other thing is he's a free agent after this upcoming year. So I think it depends on what you have to trade to get Marcus Mariota. If you have to only give up a third-round pick, which this year it's the compensatory pick for Tom Brady, so wouldn't that be interesting? But if you only have to give up a third-round pick for him, I do it, just because it's 1 year. Even if it's $19 million, to me, I think it's worth it, because if you're going to go get Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to cost 20-something million now, and it's a couple years on the contract. He's going to be, I think he's got 2 more years left on his deal, if not 3. You go trade for another quarterback. Most of the top 10 to 15 highest paid quarterbacks are near $20 million a year. So I think if you're going to go trade for a quarterback, you're probably going to be paying that price tag anyway. So unless you want to bring in a guy like a Fitzpatrick or another, lower priced free agent bridge quarterback and then go get a quarterback in the first round of the draft, you're going to have to trade up. So then you're going to be giving up assets anyway. Why not do this Mariota deal? And then maybe once you get him, you might attract other free agents, because one thing that we're starting to talk about with the Patriots is they have all this cap space, but who's going to come to New England if you're a receiver or even if you're a defensive player when you don't really have, a established quarterback on your roster? Are you going to want to go play with that team if you're, Allen Robinson or Kenny Galladay or one of those other receivers that's a free agent? So you get Mariota in here, you get an established quarterback, you bring the receivers in, and then that might help Mariota say, I'll sign an extension for another year, wipe out the incentives. I'll sign an extension where maybe you pay him 15 this year and 15 or 20 next year or something like that. And then you have the receivers in. So you got Mariota locked up for 2 years. You got the receivers in free agency, and then you don't have to draft somebody this year in the first round. You can wait till next year, or you can get a project quarterback that you can develop over the 2 years. So I think this is a decent option for the Patriots if they don't have to give up more than a third-round pick. Anything higher than that, I think, is a lot.
No, I agree. I would give up a third-round pick for Marcus Mariota. I think that would be worth it. Draft picks, you never know if they're ever going to pan out. So if you can get a consistent player right now for a third-round pick, I think that would definitely be worth it. I'm just not so sure he would be worth it at $19 million. I mean, no, let me change that up. With the Patriots money, let's pay him $19 million because we need a quarterback right now. Yeah. But here's the thing. I think the Patriots have just been stingy. They've been stingy with their money throughout history, and they really don't spend it like that. So I think you might have already seen them make a move unless they have something planned for the draft. But in my opinion, there's not really a great draftable quarterback in this draft class, especially a first or second round talent like your Justin Herbert was last season. So I think if you were going to make a move to get a quarterback in the draft, I think that should have been done last season. to get a Justin Herbert. But what I would like to see them do is move up to try to get Devontae Smith from Alabama. I know he's going to go high, probably in the top 6 picks, probably. But, if you're going to move up, we're sitting around the 15th pick right now. So it's not that hard to be able to move up into that top 6, to be able to give yourself a chance to get a Devontae Smith, a young, talented receiver who's going to come in and be able to, be one of your top receivers immediately. And you clearly need to fill that void in receiver. So we need some talent. So I wouldn't mind them having Marcus Mariota and bringing Marcus Mariota in. I wouldn't also mind Fitzmagic. Fitzmagic on the right price if we can get some weapons. But I think the bigger thing is, and I think it's a bigger question, honestly, than the quarterback situation, is having weapons, because no matter who you have, you need some weapons to throw them to. So we have to fill those positions first. We need a tight end. We need a few wide receivers, and we arguably need another running back in our stable. So I'd like to see them try to fill those positions, but we're obviously going to have to fill this quarterback position going forward, and Marcus Mariota might be that stopgap player that you see come to New England. But moving forward to an exciting topic, and before we get moving forward, if you like what you're seeing here, give us a follow, give us a subscribe. All right, give us a follow on Twitter. Send us a DM with any questions that you want to have featured on the show, because we love fan topics and we love fan involvement with the show. So make sure you give us a subscribe and make sure you give us a like here so we can keep dishing out this quality entertainment for you. But yeah, moving forward to topic number 8, it's an F1 topic, so I'm going to love it. And that's Red Bull. Red Bull with the news this week that they will finally be bringing power unit development in-house, and they will be building their own power units going forward. And they're going to be doing that with the combination and the help of the Honda partnership that they've started over the last few years. And I think that's big news, because Honda had announced that they were leaving F1 at the end of the 2021 season, but now it's kind of announced that they're still going to be in F1 until 2025. It's just that they're going to be helping Red Bull build their engine instead of their being the main provider of the engine to Red Bull. So I think this is big news, especially for a team that's never built their own engine before. Yeah,
if you look at Red Bull's partnership with Honda, they driving their cars over the last 3 years, they've won 5 races. So, they've certainly been successful with those kind of engines. And I think you're right. The deal was supposed to end this year in 2021. Now you lock up at least having the Honda engines for another 4 years. That's got to be, wiping the sweat off the brow for Red Bull that, they have this locked up for the next 4 years. They can use the Honda technology for the near future, because and now they can work out what they're going to do after that. They have all this breathing room now to figure out, where can they go in 2025 when the deal, expires. So I'm sure Red Bull is very happy about that. Honda still involved in the F1 racing game, despite not, ending that contract in 2021, but still being involved with Red Bull, I think is huge too, because, I know that there's a freeze to it and how certain engines are being built, and I know we're all trying to go green here across the board, which I think is a part of it. And I know Honda wants to do a lot of hybrid engines now, so I think that's one of the reasons why they're starting to drift away. But I'm sure they still want to keep their toes in the F1 racing water as well. So I think this achieves both them, moving on to what they want to build for Honda, but also staying with their partnership with Red Bull. And like I said, Red Bull, I think it's just a security blanket for them to know that they're still driving an awesome engine that they've been very successful with over the last few years.
Yeah, I think the person that was wiping his brow the most was Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull, because he was looking for an engine supplier. Once Honda had announced that they were getting out of the game, he kind of was left empty-handed, because obviously they had the Renault engine before. They're not looking to go back to it. The Mercedes is not looking to give them an engine. Ferrari's not looking to give them an engine. So they were left with many questions of what they were going to do to fill that void of the power unit. So this is great news for them. I know he's definitely relieved that now they have a deal with Honda to help them build an engine going forward. I still think it's going to be, a huge feat, because now they're bringing this in-house, and it's not like the engine's going to get delivered from Honda. No, I'm sure they're going to have a lot of help there in-house with Honda and Honda, engineers. But now it's all got to be built in the Red Bull factory. So I think that's going to be a story in itself. So I'm really looking to see how this engine can do, especially in the first part of the season. You have two great drivers with Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez that are going to be driving this car, and it's expected to be up front. So this engine is going to have to deliver, and it's going to have to deliver in the first Grand Prix weekend. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is exciting news for F1 fans. Exciting news for F1 fans, but also exciting news for Japanese fans because they love their F1. They love their racing. They love Honda. So for Honda to announce this, the Japanese Grand Prix is really one of their biggest, hauls every year for Honda. They're all over the place there with partnerships and sponsorship. So I think that's going to be huge. You're still going to see that going forward at the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, which is an unbelievable track. But yeah, I think this is great news. I think this is great news for F1. I think this is exciting, and I'm really glad that they actually announced it and that Honda's going to be around still. Yeah,
it's a good point that it's not, they're not ordering a Honda engine on like Amazon and then they're bringing it over to the Red Bull headquarters. They're going to have to build it themselves, but I think you're talking about Red Bull's going to make sure they have the infrastructure in place to use the Honda technology. So I think that's the most important thing going forward for Red Bull. But like you mentioned, Sergio Perez is now on board with Red Bull. Now they had this announcement with Honda. It's been a pretty good couple of months for Red Bull there in F1 racing. But now we're going to switch gears to NCAA basketball. And, over the years, folks have talked about how NCAA athletics doesn't have the popularity in New England as it does probably across the rest of the country. It's obviously big down south. New York, the college basketball scene was always kind of pretty big. Midwest football and basketball are big, and then, of course, on the West Coast. Back in the day, BC basketball was pretty good. They had, Dana Barros, they had Billy Curley, Scooney Penn when he was there, before he transferred to Ohio State. They had some nice basketball teams in the Al Skinner years with not Jim Craig, but Craig James. No, not Craig James. Who am I thinking of? I'll get back to it. But they had a nice team that went to the Elite Eight. They've had some great years, and lately it hasn't been good. And one of the big news items that came out this week was the head basketball coach of Boston College, Jim Christian, has been fired. I know as a coach, Brandon, you hate to see anybody get fired, but he hasn't been good. It hasn't been a good run for Jim Christian. This was his 7th season. Hasn't been good in the ACC at all. I think that's the biggest thing, but his record is well under 500, and this year they're 3-13. So a move had to be made by BC.
Yeah, like you said, I think first off, talking about, like you said, how college sports aren't as big in the Northeast and they're bigger down South. I think you see that a lot where there's not pro teams that are close.
Right.
And, up in the Northeast, we're just stacked with pro teams on top of each other. So we kind of gravitate to that first. But, I think NCAA still does get its love, especially NCAA football. But I would like to see NCAA basketball make a resurgence furthermore than just March Madness. But, yeah, I think, I don't like seeing any coach get fired, like you said. However, I think with 7 seasons, with a losing record, I believe he was like 68 and like 122 or something like that. You'll have to double check that for me. But I know he had a losing record in 7 seasons. So I honestly think it's time. I think it's time for them to move on. I think they arguably could have moved on last season to look for a different direction for this program. And here's the thing, and it's the same thing for UMass football. So Walt Bell, I know I follow him on Twitter. He's the head football coach at UMass. But if you cannot even recruit your own state well, or you can't recruit New England well, then you're just not going to have a chance of obviously recruiting players from around the country that to come to Massachusetts, whether it be Boston College or UMass. So I think that's the 2 things that coaches have had really trouble with at both of those schools recently. And I think that's where Jim Christian had trouble with, that he couldn't even recruit his own state well, couldn't recruit New England well, couldn't bring in high-quality New England players. So he's definitely not going to get a player from, Florida or California or Texas to want to come here. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is poor recruiting over this years. The same thing will happen to Walt Bell in a couple of years, 4 or 5 years. If he can't recruit well at UMass and get UMass's football team on track, I think you'll see him get dispatched as well. And it happens. It happens. It just happens in college sports. It happens in pro sports. You get so many years to kind of get your program together and get it on track. And if you can't do it, then they're looking for somebody else because of how much money's involved.
No question. And, it's been a struggle for BC to really gain momentum, in their league since they joined the ACC. It's a tough league, especially in basketball. Over the last couple decades at least, the ACC has been the toughest conference in college basketball. But just to get the numbers officially, 78-132 overall for Jim Christian, 26-94 in the ACC. So the struggles in the ACC, and you see this in football too, where they just had a tough time in this new conference. Your schedule is obviously more stacked. You got Duke twice, you got UNC twice, Wake Forest, NC State, across the board. Football, you got Clemson every year, Virginia Tech. So, it's certainly tough. It's always going to be a tough schedule every year for the BC football and basketball. But now that you're in the ACC, you can kind of use that in recruiting. Now, Christian did have Kai Bowman and Jerome Robinson a couple of years ago, which was a nice backcourt tandem for BC in the 2017-18 season. They won 19 games. They made it to the NIT, but that's not – you want BC making it to the NCAA tournament. I think that's bottom line. Like, you want to see them there in March when everybody else wants to watch them too. So, and I think in basketball, the difference between basketball and football when it comes to recruiting too is you really just need a couple of guys. If you can get a couple of players that are some top recruits, not the top 10, you're probably not going to get a top 10 recruit if you're BC. But if you can get a couple of really good top 30 recruits, top 50 recruits, and then, like you mentioned, you recruit well in the New England, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area for BC, I think you'll be in great shape. So, like you mentioned, recruiting has been one of Christian's toughest, hurdles that he hasn't been able to leap over. And now there's a lot of talk about who's going to be the next head coach for Boston College. There's a few names out there. I know John Beilein, who used to be the head coach at Michigan, is somebody that folks have talked about. And then a few coaches from some other schools, like, say, Bonaventure and that. But I think one thing we got to look out for if we're talking about the replacement for Jim Christian is a couple of local guys. One is Tommy Amaker. He's the head coach at Harvard. He's done a great job there, 241-135 at Harvard University. They've been one of the top teams in the Ivy League and have made the NCAA tournament over the past few years as well. He's done a great job there. Tommy was a college player, famous college player himself, was an assistant coach in Michigan. You have an African-American coach that can go and talk to these African-American kids that are obviously smart. They can come to BC, they can go to Harvard. He's spoken to the recruits that BC should be going after because he's going after similar guys to go to Harvard. So he's a guy to look out for. Another guy to look out for is at my alma mater at Northeastern is Billy Cohen. Billy Cohen's done a great job at Northeastern. They've made the NCAA tournament a couple of times. If you've been to the facilities at Northeastern, Matthew Hughes Arena is cool and all, but it's not Conti Forum, and he still gets great recruits to go there. They do very well in the CAA, and he was an assistant under Al Skinner. And there was always this talk about, Al Skinner's a great coach. He's built a great program at BC, but Billy Cohen and a couple of the other assistant coaches did a great job recruiting there. So he's a guy you got to look out for as well. And then one more guy, I think, is Joe Jones at Boston University. He spent 1 year as an assistant at Boston College. It was just after the Al Skinner years before he took the BU job. And he's been recruiting in this area as well, getting kids that are going to a school that's thought of highly academically, and he's recruiting the Patriot League. So I think some of those guys are the guys that you got to look at as well, along with some of the national guys for this BC job. But it will be very interesting to see what Boston College does in the head basketball department.
Yeah, no, those first two that you brought up, John Beilein, I think that would be a great choice. He's obviously had a great program with Michigan. They made the NCAA tournament several years, so I think I would be happy with that choice, to be honest. I'd also be happy with Tommy Amaker, like you said, a guy that can definitely come in and recruit New England and get it done. So I think if you're going to name your next head coach as one of those two guys, I think your program would be going in the right direction. And I think that's what BC needs to be doing right now, is obviously getting their program in the right direction. Those two would be great names going forward to do that. And like I said, BC, we're talking about pretty much the premier university in New England, especially as far as facilities go. So they have one of the nicest campuses, one of the best facilities. They have an endless bankroll of money. So it's like they need to really pull it off and get themselves back in the driver's seat here, especially in the recruiting game. And that goes for basketball and football. But I think, like you said, if you hire those two coaches, I think one of those two coaches, I think would be a great replacement to get this program back on track. Honestly, I think Al Skinner had the glory years of BC basketball most recently. I love those years of Al Skinner. Hey, bring Al Skinner back. Let's get that chant going. Bring Al Skinner back, because I think he would be a great choice too, to be honest. So,
you know what? There's another rumor, and this could be an interesting hire too for head coach, Jared Dudley. He's still in the NBA. Wow. He's still in the NBA, but if he retires at the end of the season, he's with the Lakers, so he's won a title, and he's one of those guys that's like the glue guy in every team that he plays on. But he was a great player at BC back in the Al Skinner glory years, and he's another guy that could be a head coach candidate for BC.
That'd be great. Like if he's willing to come into coaching and right off the bat, obviously coming from an NBA team and winning some titles, I mean, he's going to have a lot of experience, was definitely one of those glory players from those glory years of Al Skinner. So I wouldn't mind that. I think that would create some great hype. You would definitely start a great recruiting train by bringing in a former player that, as long as he knows what he's doing with the X's and O's, which I don't doubt that Jared Dudley could do a good job, to be honest. Honestly, though, if I'm the president of BC, though, I'm going with one of those two first guys, though, with John B. Lime or Tommy Amaker. I just think that's a higher play for us going forward to get our programs in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, going forward to our last topic, and that's Jordan Spieth. Man, he's finally coming back into some great form over these last few tournaments, and I know that's great for golf fans to see. What do you think about that, Pat?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting time to talk about Jordan. He's struggled over the last few years. Even though his meltdown at the Masters in 2016 didn't totally stop his, winning. He actually won in 2017 and was successful in 2017. But since 2017, he hasn't won a tournament. So it's been tough for Jordan, especially that crazy hot start he had to his golfing career. Now you see him this season, and he played well at the Waste Management Open. He was in the lead, going into Sunday after shooting a 61 on Saturday. I think that was his career best round. And then he shot one over on Sunday in the Waste Management Open, so he ended up tying for third. And then this past week, he played in the AT&T Pro-Am, where I believe he was either in the lead or one shot back going into Sunday. I can't remember for sure. I think he was tied for the lead. And then he only shot, I believe, a 70, which was 2 under on Sunday. And you just saw some other players, Spieth didn't play bad, but, Brooks Koepka just tore the cover off the ball that Sunday and won the tournament outright coming from behind. But, the one way you can look at this is Jordan's playing really well right now. And that could lead into a couple of months from now when we have the Masters, which is almost exactly 2 months away, a little bit less than that. And if Jordan can redeem himself at the Masters, that would be an unbelievable story. That's where he kind of, choked the Masters away in 2016. If he can come back and win the Masters, I think that would give him all the confidence in the world, because that's what golf is about, is confidence. But I think the question you now have to ask with Jordan is, he's playing well, but he's still kind of struggling on Sunday with the lead. And when you look back at like Tiger Woods' career, when Tiger Woods was at the top of his game, if he had a lead on Sunday, you weren't catching him. That guy was an assassin. He wanted to not only win the tournament, he wanted to step on your throat. And that's kind of the difference between a guy like Tiger Woods and a guy like Jordan Spieth. You even look at Brooks Koepka, like I just talked about. Brooks Koepka isn't necessarily an assassin like Tiger Woods was, but he's very robotic. He'll come into a round and he's just an absolute machine when he gets it going out there, where Jordan's got a lot of highs and lows. And one of the reasons fans love him, one of the reasons I love him, is just he does get a little frustrated with himself. He kind of seems like a regular guy, playing golf out there. So I think he's going to be in the mix over tournaments over the next couple of months and probably for the rest of the year just by the way he's playing. But the question now is he going to be able to either carry a lead into Sunday or play well on Sunday to pick up his first win in several years?
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a great comparison with Tiger, and I'm not talking about obviously the talent or the wins, but how Tiger's kind of had an up and down career. I mean, he had some injuries, he had the scandal, obviously, and now he's bounced back and he's had some great years. So, I mean, you fans out there, if you've played golf, you know how hard it is. You know how hard it is. So, I mean, you go through these up and down moments, even as an amateur golfer, where I know on the front nine, I might be tearing it up, and then on the back nine, I'm crying and I want to go home. So it's just really one of the hardest sports out there to actually be good at. And not only to be good at, it's one of the hardest sports to be consistently good at. And so I think, Jordan Spieth, like you said, had a really hot start to his career. So many people are expecting so much of him. But remember, this is still a young guy. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's still in his 20s. So he's still got a lot of golf to play. I think he's going to come back into form. I think you're starting to see it now over these last few tournaments. And I think the biggest thing for him is he's keeping the ball in play. He's keeping the ball in play. He's giving himself some easy approach shots, and then he's just been capitalizing on that. And I think that's the biggest thing. When you can do that in golf and keep your head in the game, then that's really when you can play and shoot some low numbers. I think that's what he's been doing recently. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do at the Masters. I'm looking forward to seeing maybe we can get a matchup of him and Tiger in one of the pairings. I think that would be a great matchup to see one of the first 2 days. I'd like to see, I know because they do threesomes too as well, maybe throw Rory into that group. And I think that would be a great threesome, maybe the first 2 days of the Masters for us fans to really get some good enjoyment.
Yeah, if you had Tiger, Jordan Spieth and Dustin Johnson, who won it in 2000. This past year in the moved Masters that we finished off the year with. So you have Tiger who won in 2019, Dustin Johnson, and then Jordan Spieth. That'd be pretty sweet. The other thing with Jordan Spieth that he's doing now too is Jordan became the golfer he is because of his putting. I mean, anytime he had a putt inside 10 feet, he was hammering it home. That was a gimme for him, And then I think when he started struggling, those 6 to 10 foot to 12 foot putts, he just wasn't making them. He was, they weren't automatic anymore. I think you're starting to see him hit those putts now. And again, as he gains confidence, he's going to be able to bury more of those putts. And like you mentioned, he doesn't hit the ball like some of these other players do it. I mean, you look at Xander Schauffele, who's this short guy who hammers the golf ball down the fairway. Obviously, kept getting Dustin Johnson and Gary Woodland. Those guys hit the cover off the ball. But Jordan's never been that kind of player. But if he's consistent, tee to green, and then he putts the way he's capable of putting, he's going to be in every major and every golf tournament that he can play well in. So it'll be interesting to see what he does over the next couple of months leading into the Masters. I think right now he's on the right track, though. That's it for our 10 topics tonight, folks. And if you have any topics that you want us to talk about, if you have any questions or any arguments you want to make about anything that we've talked about on this show, make sure you subscribe to Comeback Sports. You can email us at Comeback Sports. You can also tweet at Brandon or myself on Twitter. And ask us questions, send us emails, send us feedback. If you want to dip into the live chat while the show's going on, you can ask questions there. So do all those things. If you have anything you want to ask us, we'd be happy to talk about it. We love fan engagement. We love emails and comments. If you completely disagree with us, even better. And that's something that we'll make sure that we talk about on this show. Brandon, I'm sure that you'd love to see some fan engagement as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some great topics going forward that are going to really drive fan engagement. I mean, one of the ones was you talked about earlier in the show is LeBron James going to put himself into that GOAT category of being, the top basketball player of all time. So I know we'll have that. That's a great opinionated question. My opinion, no. Michael Jordan will still be greatest, but I'll save that. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have some great fan engagement going. There's still going to be a lot of hot topics going forward because, sports never stop. They just keep going 24/7 and we're here to talk about it.
Yeah, I think our producer, Ben Kudo, actually does have a question for us this week. We love answering these things. So our producer, Ben Kudo, I think is going to come on and give us a question from one of the viewers here on the show.
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey guys, actually this week I've got the questions. So we didn't have any viewer questions this week, so I wanted to check in with you guys. I was wondering what's going on with the Celtics bench. Can you tell us, I've been wondering, when are we going to see Taco Fall start throwing down, and what's going on with the bench, and what can we expect from the rest of the year? But you guys, great show. I'm going to fade out and leave you guys to it, but take care.
That's a great question, Ben. I'll start this one off. I think my biggest take from, and the Celtics have been struggling before their win last night against the against the Nuggets. They were 5-10 over their last 15 games. Now, some of that has to do with, Kemba Walker still working his way back into the lineup. I know people are sick of hearing that, but it does take time, especially for a little guy with a knee, sore knee. So we got to let him kind of ease his way back into it. Jason Tatum was out a couple of weeks with COVID. He's still feeling the effects of COVID. Jaylen Brown's been a stud. Thank God for him. And now you've got, Tice has been out. Marcus Smart's been out for a few weeks now. And now you have some rookies that have to be major contributors, like an Aaron Nesmith now is getting some time, and he actually played okay last night. Peyton Pritchard's been great when he's been out there for most of the season, but he is a rookie. He's not going to be there every night. One of the issues the Celtics have right now is that they have too many, average kind of bench guys. They've got Semi Ojeleye, Carson Edwards, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith. Whether you start Tristan Thompson, the other one's coming off the bench or not. Then you have Robert Williams. Then Ben mentioned Taco Fall. And then, Romeo Langford, who was their first-round pick last year, is still injured. He's going to come back probably after the All-Star break. Then you still have Marcus Smart, who's got to come back. So you have, 6 or 7 guys that don't even start that get minutes for this team. And I think some of those guys just don't know when they're going to play. And when Stevens sees all those guys on the bench, it's hard to have a second rotation or a good way to sub guys in when you have so many guys that need to get out there. So I think what the Celtics need to do is make a deal at the deadline, even if they don't use that trade exception, which, depending on who you want for the Celtics, you might not want to use it this year. I know people don't want to hear that. I know Celtics fans don't want to hear that. But if you don't have the guy that you think is going to win you a title, why use that trade exception this year when you can maybe use it in the offseason or next year to get that player that you really want? But if you trade a few of those guys, I actually posted something on Twitter, I think at Bill Simmons. He didn't tweet it back at me, obviously. But I put it in the ESPN trade machine. I posted some of the guys that I just mentioned and traded for Thaddeus Young. So you're trading 5 guys for Thaddeus Young, the salaries match. And then he at least putting some players, getting some players out of there and bringing a guy in who can bring some toughness, some scoring off the bench, some rebounding. He's not going to help you win a championship, but I think he'll boost your bench and actually give you some toughness and scoring that you need.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points, honestly, Pat. I mean, shows how much you know about basketball and how much you really, I'm serious, because those are some obviously great points. And I think the biggest one that you're saying is, they still need some time to develop as a unit coming back. Like you said, Jason Tatum having COVID, Kemba coming off the knee injury, Marcus Smart being out, like you said. So they're really starting to, the key players learning to play with each other again and kind of get back in rhythm. So I think that is huge. I'm still standing with that this team is going to get it together after the All-Star break. I've been saying it for weeks now. So I think we still need to give them some more time. But I think you bring up another great topic with that. I think they do need to make a trade. I think they do need to make a trade to get a big man. I think Tristan Thompson has been a bust. I mean, Daniel Tice is pretty much our only big man that has been playing good. And to bring up what Ben says, I think Taco Fall needs to boost himself up in the offseason, gain a few more pounds, eat some more tacos, man. Eat some more tacos, hit the gym so he can be a dominant player, because with the height that guy has, I think we've seen it a few times. They just get him the ball and he just dunks it. So he could really turn into a dominant player, protecting the rim, rebounding, and just throwing it home if he could get a little bit more on his frame so we could put up with guys like a Dwight Howard underneath that is just going to toss him around like a rag doll. But I think so. I would like to see them make a trade, and I think it's for a big man. And Thaddeus Young, maybe he is the guy. But But I don't know, man. But I would like to see them make a trade. I would like to see them make a trade for a big man. And like you said, we have plenty of depth on this team, so we should have plenty of pretty much trade bait to pretty much make a move. And to more of your point of basketball, and as a coach, sometimes it's a lot easier when you have a smaller rotation to be able to play it, when you're only just playing about 8 guys, 3 guys off the bench, and you 5 starters, compared to having like 10, 12 guys. And you got guys over there crying about playing time, and you can't get them all in. Remember, there's only 5 on the court at one time. So I think you brought up some great points. But let's just give this team some more time, and let's see what they do after the All-Star break.
I know Celtics fans, we're impatient. We're used to winning. You know, these young players, Brown and Tatum, were so successful at the beginning of their careers that we just expect this team to be a championship contender every year. And while they have 2 of these top players, you know, they're still trying to grow. They're still young. And then you have the surroundings. A lot of the supporting players are still young. Like I mentioned, Smart's a veteran. Kemba Walker's a veteran, but it's just his second year with the Celtics, and he's coming off an injury. You know, Tice is a relatively inexperienced player for the most part. Been there a couple of years. You know, the one thing I think they're missing with Tristan Thompson, I thought Thompson, I didn't expect him to be a good offensive player. He's never been that guy. Very good rebounder. I figured he'd rebound a little bit more than he is right now, but maybe that's just because, you know, he's still new to the team as well. It's going to take some time. I thought he would be that veteran presence that they need on this team. Thompson's been in the league for a while now. He was on a championship team in Cleveland. He's also seen the lows of the league when he was with Cleveland, you know, the last couple of years when they were not a good team after LeBron left. So, you know, I wish that Thompson would be more of a vocal player in the locker room to say, hey, I've won a title. This is how it's done. And we need to tighten things up here, because they're kind of missing that guy. The Celtics rely so much on Tatum and Brown to do scoring, to be 2 of their top wing defenders, to rebound, to be facilitators. And you also want them to be the leaders of the team and the veteran presence when they're kind of not those guys yet. You know, Jaylen Brown is very smart. The leadership he provides off the court is huge, but he's not a totally rah-rah vocal guy. Tatum's a little more vocal, but he's not necessarily that, you know, that big voice in the locker room that they need. So I really wish Thompson would be that guy. But yeah, I think they have way too many guys. The thing with Taco Fall, throw him in there for a couple minutes. You know, I mean, I don't think he can play 15, 20 minutes a game, but throw them in there, him in there for 2 minutes. It's weird for teams to play against him. He's just a big, huge guy in the middle of the floor. And when he does get in there, he's a shot blocker. You know, he can kind of carve out space in the paint. So just throw him in there for a couple of minutes, see what happens, and maybe change things up a little bit. Maybe to give some guys some rest too if he's getting in there during certain games. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. Like I said, let's give them some time. They'll come together.
Yeah. Certainly a lot of options for Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and like we said, maybe a few too many for them right now during this time of the season. But folks, once again, thank you for joining us here on Comeback Sports. Give us a subscription on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. You can see our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen right there. And send us emails and send us questions. We'll be happy to answer them. We will see you next time on Comeback Sports, folks. As crazy as it sounds, it has been a crazy sports time. Even though NFL is over, there's still a lot to talk about, so make sure you come back every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. here on Comeback Sports. That is Brandon the Coach Perry. I am Pat the Shot Caller Flaherty. We'll see you next time, folks. Have a good week.